Good afternoon to everybody. I'm delighted to have here with me this afternoon David and Jane Newsome. And we're just going to do a little interview with them just to tell you all a little bit more about our partnership with Hands at Work, which is a charity that works in Africa. They will be much better at telling you about that than me, but we're going to be just asking them a few questions and also just to really promote our filling station partnership with the charity Hands at Work. So it's great to have David and Jane. Thank you so much for joining us. David and Jane Newsome are the joint national coordinators for Hands at Work UK. And our partnership between Filling Station and Hands at Work started around 2014. And as I say, the reason for this interview is just to give you a little bit more info on that partnership, what it involves, and a little bit more about Hands at Work. So firstly, David and Jane, would you be happy just to give us a quick overview of Hands at Work and what they do? That would be fantastic. And also your role with them, how you got involved. That would be great.
Shall I start?
Yes, you can.
I mean, firstly, just to say how nice it is for us to be talking to you, because we come as past members of a filling station, of the filling station in the Clun Valley while we were living in Shropshire, and so really appreciate your ministry, and so it's great to be part of that. In terms of our involvement with Hands at Work and what Hands is actually, Hands at Work is really a response to the biblical mandate to care for the orphan and widow. And when we first went, it wasn't Hands at Work in those days. In 2006, it was a ministry working in 5 rural townships in South Africa. And I remember on our very first day, we were just mucking in with whatever was going on, and we were told there was some school bags to distribute to school children, and we were taken to this shed, and it was packed from floor to ceiling with school equipment, and it was suddenly being given a glimpse of the kind of scale of the problem that Hands at Work is seeking to minister in, the number of children that represented. And there are more AIDS orphans in Southern Africa than there are children in the UK. And it just was an enormous personal wake-up call to me of a kind of tsunami of need, really. And that was the context in which Hands at Work was born.
And so in terms of what Hands at Work does, it's really responding, as David said, responding to that need, but responding in a very practical way, but in a way that respects the local people and walks alongside the local people and it seeks to empower them rather than sort of going in as the saviours to sort of sort it all out. It's seeing who are the people who are already working with orphans and vulnerable children and supporting them. And we support them by providing the children with 3 essential services. So that's food security, healthcare, and education. And we do that from a care point, which is a very, very sort of basic thing. It's probably just a cooking pot, because the most important thing are the people who are there to support them, the wonderful care workers who know each child by name and visit them in their homes. So I suppose that's the heart of what we do. Do you want to add anything else to that?
I mean, I think what you said about walking alongside and not coming as saviours is really important. And sometimes we say that volunteers are like scaffolding, there to kind of support what's going on and help it grow so that one day, like the scaffolding around a new building, it's removed and the building stands.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've seen some lovely examples because we've been involved for quite a long time now, haven't we? We've seen some wonderful examples of the young orphans, particularly the teenage orphans we first met. This sort of group of young lads who just wanted to play football and just were bringing up younger brothers and sisters and didn't really have a childhood or a youth or a teenage years or anything. And so these youngsters we got to know then are now, I mean, it's sort of really moving, are now some of the leaders in Hands really driving it forwards, you know, sort of Betwell and Google, you know, it's just lovely to sort of see how they've grown and flourished and wow, they are quite a force to be reckoned with now. So that's sort of that's one of the things I love about Hands.
Very inspiring.
Yes, that's fantastic. Thank you. And obviously now your role in the UK.
Yes, in terms of what we do, you want to
Well, I guess our story is kind of similar to yours in a way, that we kind of took when we reached a significant birthday, we took a very radical kind of change of direction, both of us giving up ministries we loved in order to be able to work full time in a voluntary capacity for Hands at Work. So we did that in 2015, and our role is to coordinate, as you said in your introduction, Joe, the work of Hands in the UK. And that means connecting with partners such as yourself and ensuring that we can resource you with information and so on. It means helping develop new partnerships and advocating for Hands at Work and for the children that we serve. And ordinarily, in pre-COVID times, just as you and your ministry would be out and about visiting filling stations, so we would be out and about much of the year visiting partner churches and groups and so on. You know, speaking on behalf of Hands.
Hands is a very relational organisation, so it really is about building up relationships, getting to know people, and so we do that through regular meetings, sort of prayer meetings and so on. And actually, although we haven't been able to visit people, you know, in their homes, in their churches, Zoom, you know, for all its faults, has been wonderful this year, quite a gift, you know, open up different possibilities.
Definitely.
I'm sure
you've found that as well, haven't you? Getting people together who wouldn't normally be able to get together.
Exactly.
It's been a blessing in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it feasible rather than sort of mentally in the past, we'd always think, gosh, I've got to make that, you know, 200-mile journey or something.
Yes.
Do it like this. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Very helpful.
It might be good. I thought I would just say a little bit how Filling Station got involved with Hands at Work. I particularly, as our ministry started to grow, the Filling Station started to grow sort of 2012, 2013. I particularly had been really praying about what David was talking about, actually, how our mandate as Christians is to reach out to the poor, to the suffering, to the oppressed, to the widows and the orphans. And I didn't really know where to start. I used to go to New Wine every year and sort of find myself signing up for everything in the marketplace, you know, it was Hover Aid or Compassion. There's also this growing sense of frustration in me about, it was great what we were doing, but I felt this was something that we really needed to be involved with somehow, but didn't really know where to start. And then it was definitely a divine connection, I felt, actually, from the Lord, where in London at a friend's birthday party, I met a guy there and who headed up a charity called Hope HIV, and Mark Glenn.
That's right, Mark Glenn, that's the man.
And we ended up talking, well, obviously he was traveling to Africa a lot. We ministered in Africa for 7 years, and so we just got talking about Africa. And then he started telling me about their ministry, and then I started sharing my heart about what I felt we wanted to do at Filling Station. And to cut a long story short, he connected me with someone at Hands at Work in South Africa, Catherine Clarkson, and I then contacted her, and we were supposed to be going out to South Africa anyway on our sort of work and bit of a holiday trip. And so we felt that we would do a little detour from where we were to go and visit Hands at Work. So we did that for 2 nights and a day and met all the wonderful people at the hub in South Africa. And it was a step-by-step
beginning, wasn't it?
process, really, wasn't it?
It was very much,
the Lord sort of gave us a picture of stepping stones. I kept saying, Lord, where's this going? And he gave me a picture of stepping stones, one step at a time. So then we came back, we prayed.
Yeah.
And then we really felt to take a
sort of pilot group, wouldn't we? Yeah. 6 of us went about a year later.
2014.
That's 14. That's right. Yeah.
So we took our first team out. And we very much said to the people, we personally sort of invited people at the filling station we knew. And we said, would you just like to come on this team with us? So it was quite a small team to start with.
Yeah, it was all very much testing the water, but it was very clear when we got there and started getting involved and meeting everybody and going to the communities and so on, very clear that this was the way to go. And actually that the Lord wanted us to be further involved, hence the story now.
Yeah, I think we were just more and more impacted and impressed by what Hands at Work were doing and the way they were doing it. And, it was amazing to see the whole team impacted.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning, really. And I think from then, that was when we sort of officially started partnering. So we, Richard and I think over those last 7 years, 6 years, we've taken, I think, a total of 7 teams out, ranging from between 8 and 12 people. Our most recent trip was in 2019. I was involved in 2 teams in 2018. And I think there's going to be a blog alongside this interview from one of our team members. I think every single person, we've even had a few of people on our teams who wouldn't call themselves Christians, some young actually, and they were all powerfully impacted. One girl actually made a commitment on the trip.
Yeah.
So everyone, it's obviously seeing what Hands are doing, getting involved, working and sitting alongside the poorest of the poor. And the Lord does much more. You think you're going to serve, but actually
it's very often the Lord's having impact on you.
You've been served actually,
yeah,
and that the Lord's done more in you. So it's been a really amazing journey actually for
really
us. We've been very sad that we haven't been able to do teams this year, obviously, or last year. But we're really hoping and praying that the next year we'll be able to take a team out again.
We tend to take them historically out in sort of February, March, springtime, really. That seems to be good for the Brits coming out, and then also for the Hands End, having a team of 10 or 12 or whatever. And we recruit from within the filling station network all over, really. Meetings, we've had people from, I can't remember how many meetings have been represented over the years, but that's the whole thing. This is a ministry that we as the filling station at large love to partner with and see it as a God-given opportunity for us in a small way to serve, but obviously through it, in practical terms, we find that the team members are changed and challenged in all sorts of godly ways. That really has been our story, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's that transformation that's really, really powerful, really. But on both sides, that sort of encounter.
Absolutely.
It is.
It's George's wonderful expression when our world collides with their world.
I
love that. Both are transformed. George Simon being the founder of Hands at Work. He was the most amazing man. So that's wonderful. I mean, there's so much we could say, but obviously we've got limited time. But I think the final thing really is if people wanted to find out a little bit more about Hands at Work or even get involved, one thing to say is I think we've got about 24 different people now who've been on previous teams who are now regularly giving to support Hands children. I think that's about right.
Yes.
And it's £20 a month now, is that right, David and Jane?
Yeah, we reckon it costs about £20 a month to provide what Jane was talking about, the 3 essential services of food, education and basic healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got to realise also, Jesse and I have led a church in Cape Town in South Africa for some years, and we've had a lot of exposure to Southern Africa, certainly. And one of the differences to Britain, and this is really for the filling station audience who may be seeing this, is that obviously the state doesn't have any safety nets. They don't have any provision, really, very little provision for those most marginalised and vulnerable in their society. And as David said a moment ago, a shocking number of AIDS orphans there. And so it's vital that we as Christians, as the church, we step up and actually do something about that. And that's why I was always very impressed with the quality of the Christians I met in Southern Africa, for whom this was understood as a normal part of the gospel, is that you look after the poor in your midst, in your society. Yeah. So in a sense, it's a very healthy dynamic for any Christian to actually be involved with that and see that in action and be participate. Even if a small way for just 2 weeks of 1 year, it's actually really a very important thing to actually see and be involved with firsthand. So this is one of the reasons why we're so keen to encourage other filling stationers to come and join us in our future teams. And we obviously hope we can do one next year. We don't know when, we don't know the dates, of course, but we definitely will be doing more filling station teams from Britain out to South Africa. So come and join us on that, please. We'd love your input.
Yes. And David and Jane, is there any other things that you'd like to say to filling stationers out there?
Yes. Would you like them to know?
Final word.
Well, I think firstly to say, how much we appreciate the support of members of filling station. That's really, really valuable, and as you've alluded, brings about tangible change in the life of the children that are supported. And if people are, wanting to know more, obviously there's the website, but there's also, because I know how central prayer is to the life of filling station. There's the prayer app, which at the moment during Lent, we have 40 days of prayer during Lent. So there's a new thing to pray for on each day of the prayer app, but normally outside of Lent, it's updated every week. So that might be something that would be of interest to filling station people.
We have regular monthly prayer meeting at men's prayer and women's prayer. So women's prayer is on a Monday, first Monday of the month, and men's prayer first Tuesday of the month. And that's a lovely way of people who are interested in hands getting together to pray, getting updates about hands and getting to know other people who've been on teams. That's a really good way. I mean, if you're interested in hearing more, perhaps you could get in touch with Joe and Richard and get onto our database, because that would give you regular updates, stories of children, stories of communities, events that are happening. We have regular Zoom events at the moment, of course, just to keep you connected, because, as Richard said, we can't obviously go this year. We don't know what the future is going to look like. I mean, it is in God's hands, and I think God is in all of this. We will find other ways of connecting. We're relational. We will find ways of connecting with Africa. However that happens, we hope it's going to be going, but we don't know at the moment, but we still stay connected with our communities.
Thank you. And we've also got a WhatsApp group. Actually, it's all people who've been on previous teams. So it's a reasonably large WhatsApp group. And every Wednesday I update them. So they're all sort of getting it into their heads now that Wednesday is praying for Hands at Work Day.
Great.
And David sends out some very helpful audios that come straight from Africa. So I will often forward those on, which gives specific prayer pointers for people. And I think, that group, I always get a response from several of them to say that they're praying, or they were very moved by that audio. So I think that, and we've sort of slightly upped that, I think, in the last year. It's almost like when you can't do anything practical, you get more focused on prayer. It should be the other way around, really, shouldn't it? But actually, well, what can we do? We can pray. We can pray. And it's good to know that these people across filling station who come on teams are really committed to that group. But as you say, there's also a separate hands prayer app as well. So so there's lots of ways people to get involved.
I must admit, I've noticed also you're very good at feeding back to us as prayers from afar when the prayers are answered and we see the Lord move and somebody's rescued or something happens and some life has changed. In that regard, it's a very healthy prayer dynamic. You pray a petition, talk to the Lord, and then we see something change for the better.